Hello, and welcome to the Digital Workspace Works podcast. I'm Ryan Purvis, your host, supported by our producer Heather Bicknell. In this series, you'll hear stories and opinions from experts in the field, stories from the front lines, the problems they face and how they solve them, the areas they focused on from technology, people and processes, to the approaches they took that will help you to get to the scripts with the digital workspace inner workings.
So this topic's really all about why we like to play video games where we have a job, in part to escape our real life jobs. So why are these games more engaging, more satisfying than our actual jobs, where they feel like an escape and people spend hundreds of hours on them? So these are games like Animal Crossing, where you can be a farmer, an interior designer, or Stardew Valley is another farming kind of cozy game. And then there are ones that are a bit more high stress, but are still kind of centered around normal-ish jobs. Things like one I like to play with my friends is Overcooked, where you are a team of chefs working to get different meals out the door. That's quite stressful, actually, because it's timed and you're all having to coordinate and kind of yell at each other to figure it out and pass the level. But yeah, it is interesting to think about logging on and playing these games where you have a job, after your 9 to 5. Why do we like to do that?
I think it's about control. I was listening to something today about this, and it's very much around sometimes in your working environment, you don't have control over what's going on, and the games have a lot more guardrails in place because it's the mechanics are there, so you control the outcome better. So and that's why it's a nice stress relief, because you can go and play the game. Okay, some games obviously can be stressful depending on what you're doing. I mean, I can think of some games where it took a month to get past a certain level, because you just you had to do things perfectly, and if you didn't do it perfectly, you'd lose the level and start again. But the other stuff, I think of some of the other games that I've played of my life when I was gaming. It was the puzzles, it was the relaxation of solving the problem in a nice confined space where you felt that motivation and that achievement for finishing it, but you weren't in this uncontrolled space. Like work can sometimes you can be overwhelmed, sometimes it can be stressful because you've been bombarded with things or whatever it is, and that's where games make it easier to deal with things.
I was just saying, I agreed with you, and I also was thinking there might be something around the ability to fail in a game, the safety of failure, and that one thing, people talk about is that psychological safety at work and feeling like, if you try something new and you fail at it, that's a growth experience, that's a learning experience. But oftentimes in the workplace, you might not feel quite like you do have permission to fail or kind of muddle through things, where in a video game, that's very much what you have to do, right? And the consequences are, as a game, by the nature of it being a game, less, I guess, they don't have a real impact on your life. So you can try things out without fear of failing.
Yeah, and that's where serious games are coming quite aggressively. There were a lot of these for a while that were being, if you look at training generally speaking, how you could, and we did some of the stuff when I was with Harlow. We looked at it at least, where you could look at scenario training and you could build an environment that would explain, or at least have the user try out and explore the situation and what would you do in that situation. And I'm trying to think of something else we did. Something I did many years ago, actually. We did this as a response to an RFP with Salesforce automation, where we actually built a 3D rendered game of a couple of local bars where the salesperson could walk through and they could check the branding and the location of the fridges and stuff for the alcohol that was being sold. to confirm that the bar was meeting the spec that was required. Because a lot of these bars here, and I'm sure this works everywhere else in the world, they get sponsored by the brand, a certain amount of money or a certain amount of kit, so that they can show the premium brands in the right places and stuff like that. And that was actually a really cool game, and I was surprised we lost that deal, to be honest with you, because we were the only ones who did that. To say, well, this is how you're going to train your Salesforce people to use the tooling, and it was all gamified. And then you also get into the situation where you can roll out new stuff in a repeatable environment where you're now adding another piece of branding or something else to look for, and they can be trained in the same place. So you can have repeatable training and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I remember hearing, I think it was Walmart a few years ago, something around them using VR to train their associates for Black Friday shopping. I wonder if they still use that or if that was kind of a one-off experiment somewhere. But it seems like there is more opportunity to bring that gamified experience in, at least to the training portion, because a lot of corporate training tends to be unengaging, right? Like videos and quizzes that are, kind of old or just kind of rote, don't really fully engage your brain. So you're just trying to get through them instead of maybe developing an actual skill, just even, have more enjoyment in the training experience.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about, engagement in the end. Look, the development of games has become, drastically quicker to do. There's some really good engines out there now. There's if you look at some of the cloud services like Amazon, well, the Xbox services that are provided by Amazon, the one by Google, which I don't know what that one's called. Sony's got their own one. So they're generating this platform where you can go create the game and deploy it. Now, obviously, they're directly there for consumer games. But if you're a company trying to do training and you can do, short games, and we've looked at some very simple ones, 2D games as opposed to 3D, where you're teaching people how to comply before they drive a truck. And there's some quick games, 2-3 minute games where they play the game. And part of that game is to recognize when there's a fuel leak and recognize when there's a tire pressure problem or, maintenance issues, whatever it is. It's a really good way of getting the person engaged to learn something, but also to stay competent in what they're doing. Sorry, Heather, I'm going to need to end this.
No worries. Bye.
Thanks, Abe. Cheers, Abe. Bye.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Heather Bicknell is our producer and editor. Thank you, Heather, for your hard work on this episode. Please subscribe to the series and rate us on iTunes or the Google Play Store. Follow us on Twitter @the DWW Podcast. The show notes and transcripts will be available on the website www.digitalworkspace.works. Please also visit our website www.digitalworkspace.works and subscribe to our newsletter. And lastly, if you found this episode useful, please share with your friends or colleagues.